Hello and welcome to the Hoop Collective podcast. We talk about the NBA. Joining us from San Jose, California, where he's just in from the G League Showcase, where he saw some of the finest talent professional basketball has to offer, is Tim Bontemps.
By professional talent, you mean like virtually every executive in the league that was there, because the talent on the court was not great. Here in San Jose for my wife's birthday. Shout out to my wife, Kelly. Her birthday is today.
And it was a surprise, right? You surprised her coming in from Vegas?
It was a surprise. She was quite happy.
She was pleasantly surprised, or good surprise or bad surprise?
Good surprised. My wife's birthday is the most important day of the calendar year, according to her. It's in the world, so she's quite happy.
You should probably repeat your habit of miscalculating the age by -4 years with her.
The best part of that recurring story is the reason I had that in my head for the MacMahon Howdy Partners pod is my wife spent an hour arguing with me that she's younger than she is, and so I had her age stuck in my head. But
likely story.
There we go.
That was joining us from Dallas, Texas. That was, you all know, Ben MacMahon.
Howdy, partners. Snowy Dallas, Texas, unfortunately.
Yeah, we got a cold snap out here.
Safe travels, everybody, this week with the weather, by the way, going across all the country.
Yes. I don't know if you guys heard, but it's Christmas in 2 days from this pod release. And we thought, there's a lot going on in the NBA right now, but there's a lot going on in teams playing on Christmas Day. So hopefully you folks are doing some traveling and not having too much problems with this weather. But we thought we'd go over some of the Christmas Day, not some of them, all of them.
All of them, the whole batch.
All of them, all five. And, they are, look, it's a promotional situation. The Nets aren't playing. Kevin Durant said, well, you can blame me for that.
Accurately.
That is correct. I was talking with executives about that this week, in fact.
Yeah. So, first up at noon.
Hold on, real quick. Please refer to him as upwardly mobile MVP candidate Kevin Durant.
I'm missing the reference. I mean, he is upwardly mobile, but
well, you argued against that last week. But go on.
I did.
You did. You clearly felt strongly about it.
I think that was Bontemps who said that.
I just said narratively, I have a hard time believing he's going to get enough votes to win the award based off all the dysfunction that surrounded the Nets over the past 6 months.
Okay, my bad for derailing. Wendy, take the wheel.
Yeah,
take the wheel, Wendy.
You can issue me an apology in writing later. First up on Sunday for Christmas Day is 76ers Knicks. This sort of was like, well, let's have a major East Coast game when it was scheduled, and let's not have it be the Nets in case Durant gets traded.
Yeah, I mean, this probably would have been Nets Sixers if I would almost say it would have been Nets Sixers if they would have known for sure that Durant and Kyrie were going to be on the team. Yeah,
and now it's two of the hottest teams in the league. Although Nets would have been are pretty much the hottest team now.
Yeah,
Sixers won on Wednesday night for their 6th straight win. Even though Tyrese Maxey is out with no date of return.
No, that's not true. There's a decent chance he's going to play on Sunday.
Is there? They have that locked down?
It's not locked down, but there's a decent chance he's going to play on Sunday.
All right. I thought they weren't committing to anything. But okay, if that's the case, terrific. And then they played the Knicks. The Knicks got beat at home last night or Wednesday night by the Raptors. Pascal Siakam scored 52 in a command performance. Pascal's had some big games in his career. He's had some big playoff games.
We're going to read Pascal's line real quick, just really quick.
Yeah.
52 points on 17 for 25 shooting, 16 for 18 from the foul line, 9 rebounds, 7 assists, a steal, and 1 turnover in 41 minutes.
That's the kind of performance it takes to beat the Knicks these days.
Hey, and for the Raptors to get a win, both.
Yes, it's true too.
The Raptors really needed it. I mean, it's a December game, but they really needed it.
Desperately needed it.
Just to end the Knicks' 8-game win streak. So the Knicks are in 6th place inside the play-in line. While I would much rather see a Philly-Brooklyn playoff series, which would currently be the alignment, It's not out of the realm of possibility that you could see a Knicks Sixers series. Joel Embiid is healthy and playing very, very well. Bontemps Philly is one of the teams you follow a lot. What has gone into this 6-game win streak that has the Sixers getting some positive momentum as they're getting healthier?
I mean, generally the fact that they've played a bunch of pretty bad teams in a row. I mean, it helps that they've gotten healthy, but I mean, this is the run of teams they've beat: Detroit, Toronto, Golden State, Sacramento, Charlotte, and the Lakers. Like, those are the kind of games they should be
Golden
winning.
State
now you go back
without Curry and
without Stephen Curry. That's right. And Sacramento, I believe, might have had De'Aaron Fox back by that point, but I'm not sure they did either. I mean, look, the Sixers are playing the way they need to be playing. They've had a good stretch of games here. DeAnthony Melton has been awesome. But I am really fascinated, especially if Tyrese Maxey comes back on Sunday, or when he does come back in the near future, how things go with him and James Harden and Joel Embiid moving forward, and how the Sixers balance out their team over the weeks and months ahead. Because if you look at the way the Sixers have played defense over the past month or two, they've had the best defense in the league since early November. What's been the one continuous factor through that time? They've either only had Tyrese Maxey or James Harden healthy throughout that entire stretch. And my biggest concern about them when they play the elite teams in the league is if it's 6 minutes to go in a playoff game and you've got Tyrese Maxey and James Harden out there together, it's going to be target practice for the opposition on defense. They're going to be going at one of those guys over and over again. And I'm really curious to see, especially with DeAnthony Melton playing as awesome as he's been in the starting lineup next to either of those guys. You could argue the best lineup for the Sixers is PJ Tucker, Tobias Harris, and DeAnthony Melton on the wing with one of those guards and then the big fella. And, Tyrese Maxey's obviously become, one of the bright young players in the league. James Harden is James Harden. That sort of balancing act for Doc Rivers when they get everybody healthy, it's going to be really, really interesting to see what the Sixers do, because I think you can make an argument that if Maxey comes back and comes off the bench in a 6-man role, that might be the best thing for this team. But, that's going to be an interesting thing for them to manage, given, the way he has played and sort of the way his star has risen in Philly over the past couple of years.
I tell you what, you wonder why I refer to you as the urine-soaked wet blanket, right? It's, hey, the Sixers are playing great going into this Christmas game. It's, on our network.
WB for short. Has made it into text.
Let's promote these here. What's going so well for the Sixers? Well, they've played the little sisters of the poor lately. And by the way, when they get healthy, their defense stinks.
No, I didn't say that. I said, listen, you can get at me all you want. That's the number one question that matters with this team. And I'm really curious to see how they handle it. We'll see if Tyrese Maxey walks back in the starting lineup, or we'll see if they have him come off the bench and see how it goes. And maybe it stays that way. I'm very curious to see what they do, because the results speak for themselves. Since the beginning of November, when they've only had one of these guards, they've had, if not the best defense in the league, it's been one of the top 2 or 3. And that was what they were supposed to be from the beginning. That was what they were built on. Have a dominant physical defense, and then, have their Maxey, Embiid, and Harden score enough to win them games.
I think it would be extremely difficult to ask a guy who is in his 3rd year, is lining up to get a massive extension this summer, to go from being not just a starter, but a starter putting up all-star kind of numbers, averaging a pretty efficient 23 points, to come back and be a 6-man. I'm not saying that isn't maybe the ideal scenario for the Sixers, but the human element here, I think, would make that. And I don't know Tyrese Maxey personally. I can't sit here and tell you how I think he would handle that.
Very
situation.
Pleasant guy.
Right.
I would say if there's anybody who's going to handle that well in the league in that situation, literally, I would say it's Tyrese Maxey.
I would say that they, would probably need to point to the contract that Tyler Hero just signed, to the contract that Jordan Poole just signed, and said, hey.
By the way, 2 guys that we've talked about comparing him to recently also, who were 6 men last year on teams that made the conference finals and won the title, respectively.
Yeah. I just know the way the NBA works. I think that's a
It's
challenging
a challenge.
transition to ask a rising star to make.
Absolutely.
Who hasn't gotten paid yet? It's one thing if you've gotten paid.
Exactly.
What's the we don't talk betting on this show, but what would the prop bet be on PJ Tucker actually making a basket on Christmas?
No, you'd be getting a plus number on that. That's for sure.
You guys are haters. Oh, PJ. PJ's going to go like 4 or 5 from 3-point range now. Are you saying he's now P Tucker? The J is gone.
Well, he doesn't ever shoot. I mean, it'd be one thing if he was going 0 of 12 every game. He's going like 0 of 2. He never shoots, but he's doing his job defensively. But it's crazy. It started last year. He goes game after game without making a basket.
I'm looking at his game log now. He's got buckets in 4 of the last 5 games.
He's only had 2 games in the month of December.
1 and 0 over.
Yeah, he's only had 2 games in the month of December when he hasn't made a shot. In November, there was a stretch where he had 7 out of 8 games where he didn't make a shot, and in 3 of them, he didn't even take a shot. So
Here's his
it was a weird stretch.
Here's his December field goal totals: 1, 1, 1, 0, 2. An explosion for 3. Now that was against the Warriors. 1 and 0.
Okay, so
he's up to 3.6 shot attempts per game from a whopping 2.2 in November.
All right, well there you go.
While playing over 30 minutes a game, by the way.
So we've talked on the pod about how the Knicks have just made some changes to their rotation and improved their perimeter defense a lot, and it's helped completely change them around. Julius Randle and RJ Barrett are both playing some of the best stretch of basketball they've played with the Knicks. One thing that's happened with the Knicks, Obi Toppin is out with injury right now, and so RJ Barrett is getting some minutes at the 4. It doesn't start there, but he gets minutes at the 4, and he's started to hang around the basket a little bit, and he's taking shots closer to the basket, and his field goal percentage is going up. This is the one thing, the guy's jumper has been shaky. When he doesn't take as many long shots, all of a sudden his efficiency goes up. He's shooting his last 10 games, he's shooting 46% from the field. So that's positive. Boy, last night, now it ended up not mattering because the Raptors ended up winning, but he had a hellacious drive and dunk in the last 3 minutes, I think, to put the Knicks up briefly. That was as strong of a power move in that situation as I've ever seen him make. It was like he crossed over, went down the lane, and just stuffed it with his left hand, his dominant hand. And the Garden has been awesome in recent weeks. And even though they lost that game, it took one of the best games of Pascal Siakam's career to do it. By the way, one of the best
games of the season for anybody.
Are we worried about Scotty Barnes yet, Bontemps?
Not right now, because they're not playing on Christmas.
I think it's funny. We've alluded to this a little bit, but really, other than Franz Wagner in Orlando, the entire second year class that deservedly got a lot of hype last year after strong rookie years is all sort of taken a little bit of a step back, right? I mean, or at least plateaued. I would say Evan Mobley has plateaued a little bit.
Yeah,
Scotty definitely has plateaued a little bit.
Yes, Mobley is having a good year, but it's not. I mean, I thought maybe he would be an all-star this year. That's not going to happen.
Mobley has not made the leap offensively that you were hoping to see in his second season.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah, and Scotty has had long stretches of struggling. I mean, just like the rest of the Raptors.
He had the injury too.
Yeah, it's just been a strange year for the Raptors all the way around. I mean, even last night when they're in this game, I mean, it took, like you said, a insane game from Pascal when he hit half their shots basically to win the game, and once again they shot 9 for 34 from 3. They haven't been able to hit a 3 in 6 weeks basically. So I'd say it's fair to be a little concerned, but I don't think it's just a speed bump. I think he's going to end up being fine.
Well, the Knicks are relevant, and that's good. We'll see how long it stays. The Knicks do have some depth. Now, some of these guys, they've stopped playing because they don't work for the team. Like they stopped playing Cam Reddish, they stopped playing Evan Fournier. These guys don't defend, but the Knicks do have some depth. Yeah, Rose did play a little bit yesterday, but yes, Derrick Rose, which gives them some fodder, and they also have trade assets. The question is,
can the Knicks ton of picks?
Can the Knicks prevent themselves from making a trade that like only moves the ball down the field 5 yards to try to like, or
moves them backwards?
Fair point. Yeah. But certainly the Knicks are trending in the right direction, and it's good for Christmas. It should be a good environment. Okay, second game up, 11:30 Pacific time. You know the Laker fans aren't used to 11:30 Pacific time. Christmas, they're used to that 2:30 Pacific time. But to squeeze on the schedule in MacMahon's backyard, MacMahon's got to work on Christmas. Luka versus LeBron. Mavericks, Lakers. Lakers had, a pretty good traction for those 10 to 12 games, despite a difficult schedule. Now we got Anthony Davis out. The Lakers won't make an announcement as to what the injury is. It doesn't look like a short-term injury. Mm-hmm. Now they're taking some losses, and they start a 5. They do play the Hornets on Friday night at home. You'd like to think they could get that one. But the Hornets just won in Sacramento, so I don't think maybe you should assume anything. They should get that one because they got this tough road trip coming up. MacMahon, the Mavericks 500 had been playing a little bit better, kind of lost that momentum. This is a big game for Dallas, a big Luka game, midday of Christmas. Obviously I'm expecting Luka to want to have a big game, but where are the Mavericks before we get into Lakers? Where are the Mavericks at after we thought they had some real positive momentum just 10, 12 days ago?
The Mavericks have some pretty major concerns, period, but particularly in the health department now. Maxi Kleber, I'm not sure that we see him again this season. If so, it'll be late.
Hamstring surgery, just not good.
That was their, a guy who was closing games for them, a guy who they attached to Christian Wood to try to protect Christian Wood defensively. Christian Wood has started the last couple games, the last few games. Dwight Powell was hurt, but Dwight Powell was back last night. They still started him. I think the Mavericks at this point just kind of have to lean into, hey, let's see how this Wood-Luka combo works and try to outscore teams. Dorian Finney-Smith, who's the guy who would guard LeBron, he's got a strained adductor. They're bracing for him to miss several games. Josh Green, who's one of their other good defenders and a guy who's really had a nice season. He's got a sprained elbow. He's been out 7 games, is probably going to be out for a little bit longer. They're a mass unit. And, even when healthy, there are concerns that, you can basically sum up as it's Luka and kind of just a bunch of decent players, but it's this is not the kind of season the Mavericks wanted to have coming off the momentum of a Western Conference Finals appearance. And,
it's almost like it's almost like it's a challenge to build around a superstar merging into their prime. Maybe somebody should write a book about that.
Well, and especially when you lose your second best player for nothing, which we've been over 100 times, and there's no need to.
The Knicks did get their penalty. It came down.
Yeah, they're only down to 20. They're only down to 20 combined first and second round picks over the next 7 years after losing that 2025 second round pick from signing Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, they were found guilty of dads talking to sons and tampering.
Well, also, I'm not going to cry for the Mavericks. Oh my gosh, they tampered with them. Like, if you want to pretend like the Mavericks have never done any sort of tampering, or we can name any other team in the league, give me a break. I'm not going to cry for anybody there. The Mavericks botched that situation and let it get to a point where Brunson hit unrestricted free agency. So whatever. I think the Mavericks are going to have to be maybe more aggressive in the trade market than they wanted to be this season, just because the thought of missing the playoffs in the first year of Luka's Supermax extension is just not acceptable.
Yeah. I think I shouldn't say, I shouldn't get, the teams behind them, the Lakers and Warriors that you'd worry about coming up. Yeah. They're wheezing right now with injuries.
Right, so, but they're sitting here right now. They're in the ninth. They're tied for the ninth spot right now.
Yeah, I would expect the Mavs to win a playing game or two and get in, no matter where they're seated. But again, if you're sitting in a playing tournament and you either got to win two or, you could easily get a situation where, Luka gets, twists his ankle in a game. You go 9 for 40 from three in a game, and all of a sudden your season's over. And to your point, that's certainly not what they were banking on coming into the year.
As for the Lakers, LeBron is playing very well right now. He scored over 30 in 5 straight games. Obviously, Anthony Davis was playing great before the injury. The one thing the Lakers have been able to do, for the most part, you can pull out stretches where they've lost a little bit, is to defend. And that's why they've always sort of had a chance at doing something to get to the postseason if they got their act together. Without Anthony Davis, they just don't have they're already size challenged. They just don't, at least to this point, they just don't. He's such a valuable player for them defensively. They lose it. They gave up 130 or was it 100? They gave up some huge number.
134.
To the Kings on Wednesday night. And the Kings have a good offense, but the Lakers offense isn't good enough to keep pace with that kind of stuff. By the way, Domantas Sabonis, I think, has had 3 20 rebound games in the last 10 days.
Here we go.
But I'm not allowed to say a positive thing about Domantas Sabonis. He had 3 20 rebound games.
He's playing well.
He's a really good player.
So and the thing about it is that if Anthony Davis is out for a long time, what are they supposed to do? They don't control their draft pick.
Yeah, they're supposed to deliver a really nice pick to the New Orleans Pelicans for a guy who's hurt. And you're right. It's not like there's some solution there. What are you going to do? You're going to throw in all, the 2 picks to finish 12th instead of 13th? They're screwed. If he's out long term, they are just over a barrel.
Yeah, and you could say that they, this is the thing I would say is lean into the LeBron record, but I don't feel that on the.
They were over a barrel when he was playing, let alone now.
Well, yeah, they looked like they had a shot to do something, like to crawl into the
to make the playoffs. Yeah, to maybe make the playoffs. But that's not
a big maybe.
That's not the no. But I'm saying, if look, when you got LeBron James on your team, even at 38. Or, about to be 38.
How are you always so bad with ages?
Well, look, he's going to be 38 in 9 days. So if you have LeBron James on your team, even at this stage of his career, if it's like a success with LeBron James and Anthony Davis to maybe make the playoffs, I mean, I would not call that doing something. That's not what the Lakers are about.
Yeah,
squeaking in the playoffs.
Yeah. Okay. Hopefully we're just, at this point we're just hoping it's going to be a good game. What time?
They're putting that Dirk statue up, baby.
Oh, that's
right.
Dirk,
and apparently, based on some glimpses of people who going to work very early in the morning when the statue is exposed. Apparently, there's only one ball, so there's not the multi-ball kind of racy effect that people were concerned about from the original model. we won't delve too far in. They wanted the physics of the jump shot, but they got another. I
was going to say they're doing it's got to be the Dirk one-legged fadeaway shot.
It is a
right?
Dirk one. They released a model last year, and it was the path of the jump shot with multiple balls in a line, and they were trying to represent the physics of a perfect jump shot. But again, I think people saw something else there that we don't need to delve into on a Disney podcast.
Do you remember when the Warriors released the first drawing of the Chase Center and the arena looked exactly like a toilet bowl?
Yeah.
And
hey, that's a pretty smooth transition into discussing the Warriors right now.
Everybody was like, this arena looks like a toilet bowl. And they were like, well, this is just a preliminary drawing, even though they've made models and stuff. And then Rick Welts, their president, like later on after the Chase Center was built and it's beautiful, he's like, we really didn't understand that it looked like a toilet bowl until we showed it to the public. So that's a good reason to show drawings,
Right. They had to flush the original plans.
Well done. Good job. Third, by the way, are the Cowboys playing on Sunday?
No. The Cowboys
the Eagles
are
on Christmas Eve.
They're playing the Eagles on Christmas Eve. Okay. Our buddy Mac 10 is coming down and bringing his pops to town. Actually, they're going to be my Christmas dinner guests. My IT department, who also my IT department /chef /interior designer, beautiful wife Maria. She does want to shout out by name. She's cooking, but Mac 10 and his pops, they're big Philly folks. They are going to that game to see the
Dave's
Cowboys
dad
defense
is a very
throttle Gardner Minshew.
Dave's dad is a very big time boisterous Philly fan, so I hope you're prepared for.
I think they've got batteries that they're going to be throwing.
You have to have a good arm in that stadium.
Well, I was going to say, although McManaman might have a lollipop arm.
All right. After that, this is the one that I'm setting up my day around. 5:00 Eastern, ABC. They're all on ABC and ESPN, by the way. Check that box, Jackson, producer. Milwaukee Bucks versus Boston Celtics. It's a series that I covered last year. Went 7. Giannis ran out of gas in Boston in Game 7. Jason Tatum's iconic Game 6 to keep it alive.
Does Tatum work on holidays?
I think they open their Christmas. There'll be plenty of time at 5:00 Eastern to open presents Christmas morning.
Okay.
The Celtics have lost 5 of 6. They really should have lost all 6 because the game that they won in LA against the Lakers should have won that game. I know the Celtics blew a lead.
Yeah,
they did not deserve to win that. And they came out of that road trip 4-2 and probably 4-2. That's pretty good on a 6-game trip, but this should be 6 in a row. They came back, played 2 games with the Magic, and their offensive mojo has evaporated. They were, for the first 2 months of the season, just throttling teams offensively. They have just lost their edge a little bit there. Now, Robert Williams has come back. And so while that's thrown their rotations a little bit off, you would have thought that would have triggered them to even be better defensively. But Bontemps, they've lost. They just, they've lost their rhythm there. And they've been, bickering with the refs a little bit. They came home for a 7-game homestand, and they've lost the first 3. And it wasn't like the Pacers, who came in and beat them on Wednesday night, were rolling. They've been struggling recently. So what do you think's been going on there? What do you think's been going on there that is contributing to this downturn, Bontemps?
Well, on December 9th, I posted a story about how the Celtics had the greatest offense in the history of the NBA. At that point, they had an offensive rating of 119.9 for the season, 3.5 points better than any other team. Since then, Celtics have gone, I believe, as you said, 1-5. Their offensive rating is 102.3. That is 3 points worse than the Rockets, who are in 29th. They are by far the worst offense in the league. So clearly it's all my fault.
The only thing that could stop this Boston offensive juggernaut was the urine-soaked wet blanket smothering them. God,
I mean, again, I said they were the best offense of all time. I said something nice.
That's and
what happens when I say something nice.
Just your presence. Again, this team took off last year when you moved. You come back, you start.
I mean, I didn't. They didn't take off when I moved, but we. Look, the Celtics were shooting at an unsustainably high rate up until the last couple of weeks. I mean, all of their role players were shooting better than 44% from three. Malcolm Brogdon was at 50. Al Horford was at 50. Grant Williams was at like 47. There was going to be some regression. They've had all of it at once, which is obviously unfortunate, but I mean, they're going to be fine. It's actually, I think, probably ultimately a good thing that they're scuffling a little bit right now. You're about a third of the way through the season, get a little high on your supply. You struggle for a couple weeks. Joe Mazzulla can crack the whip a bit. I think it helps that, they have the Bucks coming in on Christmas Day. Obviously, that's a huge game. You can get locked in and focus on that. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that I don't think this is radically, this hasn't radically changed my feelings on them and Milwaukee being the two best teams in the league. Milwaukee lost to Memphis by 39 the other day. They got drilled by the Cavs last night. Like,
they lost to the Rockets recently. They barely beat it took the Mavericks missing 6 straight free throws in crunch time for the Bucks to win that game. Like, the Milwaukee is, they've mixed in a few good wins in that stretch, but they've lost 3 of the last 6.
How about Ja? Ja had just had that interview with Malik Andrews. I think they came out Wednesday.
The whole interview will come out, I believe, on Christmas, and they released some snippets yesterday. Wednesday.
But he got some attention for saying that the only team he's sort of is worried about is Boston. He doesn't fear any team in the West.
He didn't say he doesn't fear any team in the West. He said, I'm fine in the West. Basically, she said, nobody in the West.
Grizzlies in a minute. We'll talk about the Grizzlies in
the West.
But he only mentioned the Celtics as a team that he's
Well, they lost to Boston and they beat the Bucks by 40. So,
right. They're saying that because he just they were up. I scored 70 points in the first half against the number 1 defense in the league that night. Drew Holiday did not play. And
but everybody else played, including Giannis.
Middleton was 1 of 14.
That was not a Drew Holiday game away from being competitive. They just got boat raced in every way.
Yeah, and I don't know what's up with Middleton in terms of his potential status for Christmas. He's been banged up lately. As a matter of fact, I'm looking. I don't think he's played since.
No, he didn't play last night.
He's had a sprained ankle, but my suspicion is he'll be out there and ready to go. But I don't know that for sure.
They got a big game Friday night at the Nets, so they have Nets. 2 games in a row here that are good tests for them.
Joe Ingles has joined the group there. He's playing now, coming back off an ACL. I think temporarily they will take a step back, but obviously the hope is long term he's really going to provide a boost there as a shooter, as another playmaker. And the idea is, hey, an older guy who's never exactly quick coming off an ACL, obviously there's going to be defensive limitations. But if you put him in a lineup with Defense Player of the Year front runner Brook Lopez, former Defense Player of the Year Giannis Antetokounmpo, the best defensive guard in the league, arguably, Drew Holiday, and a really good defender in Chris Middleton, they feel like they can mask Ingles' defensive deficiencies for sure.
By the way, they did win in New Orleans to start a 5-game road trip before Cleveland. And Brook Lopez had 30 points in that game.
He's been awesome all year.
So the game that they played against the Cavs twice played up in Milwaukee already this year and were up 15 in the first half in both games. And then they're up 20 in the first half in the first time they played the Bucks at home. And Giannis dropped 45 on Cleveland on Wednesday night, which I think is his season high. So he hit him with a heavy hand, and the Cavs withstood it and were able to get that win. Donovan Mitchell had a good game, got to the line a whole bunch of times.
Did Jared Allen play?
He did. He was plus 16.
Oh, okay.
He did.
He's a pretty big difference maker.
I think he's a pretty important player against the Bucks. It's weird. Like,
MacMahon, did you know the Cavs were playing on Christmas, MacMahon? Were you aware of that? I didn't know the schedule changed.
But they will next year. Wendy will have visiting media over at his place then.
Cavs, I think, have won 5 or 6 in a row. All right, big
Cavs
game.
are also a good team.
That's a big game. I'm really looking forward to that. Okay, Grizzlies at Warriors, 8:00 Eastern.
God, the Warriors are so like this is not hyperbole. When they don't have Steph, they're the worst team in the NBA. Like statistically, that is a fact.
Are we all ready for the world where the Warriors end up with Victor Wembanyama in the draft? Are we ready for that?
Light years ahead.
I'm ready for that to happen and for everything to melt.
Oh my God.
I mean, God, it is like, hey, Wiseman scored 30 last night. He was only minus 97 while doing it.
They
stink.
They gave up 91.
By half
points in the first half.
Dude, it's.
They also didn't have Wiggins, didn't have Curry. Clay sat. God, who was else? Dante DiVincenzo was sick. JaMychal Green. Actually, DiVincenzo and JaMychal Green were sick. They were missing 6 players. I mean, I guess if you want to include Andre Iguodala, he hasn't played.
I don't care who they're missing. If they're missing Steph, they stink. They got blown out in Madison Square Garden the day before. Wiseman's net rating is down to minus 27.2. That's an impossibly awful number. Their net rating when Steph isn't on the floor, minus 12.1. Like, I'm not kidding you I'm telling you, they are historically horrible without Steph.
Well, and the other thing I'll say too, and obviously Steph is great, but they've never been good the entire Steve Kerr era when Steph Curry's been on the bench, including, by the way, when they had Kevin Durant on their team. So at some point, I do think we have to look at what Steve is doing when Steph isn't on the court and say, maybe there needs to be some sort of attempt to try some different things, because, and I'm not saying that's the reason why they're getting drilled right now completely, but like, I think you need to look at this and try to do some different things if Steph isn't out there, because we've got a long sample size now where they do not play anywhere near the same level when he's not on the court. And while he's one of the great players of all time, we see other teams with bench units that find ways to be at least somewhat productive when the stars aren't out there.
Forget somewhat productive, like not absolutely atrocious.
Right.
Like minus 12.1. The Spurs are by far dead last in net rating, and they're minus 9.1. You're 3 points worse than a team that is, totally not tanking, but absolutely awful intentionally. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's not great. It's not great.
Well, the Grizzlies are feeling pretty good about themselves. They did just take a loss, but they've gotten to the top.
The Grizzlies feel great at home. They're not very good on it. They're 6-9 on the road. They just lost to a shayless Oklahoma City team when Ja got tossed for bad mouthing the ref to a fan, basically, and then FaceTime the fan via his dad while the game was going on, which was pretty entertaining. And then, they got handled pretty good in Denver. They're mediocre on the road. But, you're talking about a team. Desmond Bane will be back sooner than later. Wendy, you've heard perhaps even sooner than anticipated on that, I believe.
Well, I just thought it was strange that, it wasn't strange, but Danny Green on NBA Today the other day was like, yeah, he could be back by Christmas. And we kind of looked at him I looked at him out of the side of my eye, and I was like, boy, okay. I just left it alone because I didn't even know what to say about that. But it's not up to Danny Green.
It's not up to Danny Green, and they are cautious. We're talking about a team though that's tied for first place in the Western Conference and has not had their starting five together for 1 second this year.
Yep.
And if you look at if you look at the lineup numbers, they are phenomenal when Ja's playing with Dylan Brooks and Jaren Jackson Jr. They're phenomenal when Ja's playing with Bane and Dylan Brooks. Now, if they can just get all those four guys together, look out. Assuming that Dylan Brooks, and this is always the big question, is going to be cool with being the fourth option.
Well, Dylan Brooks is only taking 7 shots a game on average.
What, bro?
I'm
what?
sorry.
You might be looking at first quarter stats. What are you
looking at his
about?
threes?
That didn't make sense to me. It's 16.
No,
16.
Oh, wait. He's taking
I was
16 instead of 7.
I couldn't believe that. I thought it was 6.5. I was like, that can't be right. 16.5.
I was gonna say, are you looking at made shots? What are you looking at?
He is not going to be averaging 16.5, I don't think, with Desmond Bane. So
are we sure about that?
Well, he needs to not is the point, and that's the big question. And
he was
averaging
6.7
makes. I was looking at makes, not
if he was taking 7 shots a game, that would be much better for the Grizzlies.
Right. Didn't he just say that he thought he was a candidate for all defensive team?
Of course he did.
Oh, he said defensive player of the year. He absolutely is a candidate for all defensive team. He is one of the best wing defenders in the league. No questions asked. I mean, he's an absolute monster defensively. He is a total stud. The thing is, he gets so amped up to play defense that it bleeds over on the offensive end, and
he gets amped up to play offense too.
Yeah, he fires up some
he likes to
absolute
shoot him. He likes to shoot
him
some shots.
Jaren Jackson in 14 games since coming back, 50% from the field, 16 points a game, 3.2 blocks a game. Only
he's
6
swatting
rebounds.
everything.
Yeah, that's been
everything.
To me, that's been. I mean, because we're in the early part of the season and people aren't really locked in yet. The way Jaren has come back and is playing defensively, whatever Dylan Brooks wants to say, that has been one of the sneaky big things in the league over the past month or so. And if he could keep playing like this, and he sort of takes that, next step up overall as a player, that's a pretty massive development for Memphis, because that really opens up a lot of stuff for them if he keeps playing like this.
Well, they also just got Zaire Williams back recently, who, second year guy, 10th overall pick last year, started most of the season because Brooks was out. Also one of their better defensive players. And again, they need Bane back because Bane is straight up one of the best shooters in the league. Like, he is a top 3 or 4 shooter in the league. Both
only
catch
takes 7
and shoot
shots
and now off the dribble.
Just kidding. He takes 18. Last game of the day, Suns at Nuggets, right? It's in Denver, I'm pretty sure.
So I got a stat here before we start. So MacMahon was just talking about
trivia.
Not trivia.
Oh,
do we have trivia?
We'll have trivia. This isn't a trivia though. So MacMahon was just talking about.
It's a good time for trivia. We're near the end.
We're going to do it after this. MacMahon was just talking about, because I was looking this up first. MacMahon was just talking about how the Warriors are -12 per 100 when Steph Curry's off the court, right? So when Nikola Jokic is on the court,
oh, here we go. This is amazing.
Denver is outscoring teams by 11.1 points per 100 possessions.
What's their offensive rating?
Offensive rating of 122.6. Defensive rating of 111.4. When Nikola Jokic is on the bench, Denver's offensive rating in 553 minutes is 101.
Oh.
Their defensive rating is 115.
20 less points.
Defensive rating is 115. They are getting outscored by 14 points per 100 possessions. That is a 25-point swing.
It's amazing.
Steph is a 19-point swing per 100 possessions. Jokic is a 25-point per 100 possession swing when he's on the court and on the bench. That is insane.
I mean, listen, I get voter fatigue and kind of the historical ramifications of him being a 3-time MVP, but dude, this guy is incredible. I mean, he is
now crept over 9 assists a game. So he is 25, 11, and 9.
I mean, had a 40, 27, 10 performance. Follow that up with an all 13s triple double. But it's like, if you watch the game, it was just like a complete masterclass on how to completely dominate a game without scoring a whole lot.
What about the one-handed backwards between his legs bounce pass to who was he? He threw a bounce pass.
I believe it was Bruce Brown cutting behind him.
Bruce Brown, diagonal between his legs, no look, bounce pass.
And like as the ball was in the air towards him, knew exactly what he was doing. It's like he caught it and flipped it between his legs all in one motion. He has there's 6 or 7 passes a game that he makes it. You just crack up as you're watching it.
He first off, it looks like the ball when he manipulates the ball, it looks like it's made out of something different than the other players when they touch the ball. He has the ability to do things with it and control it like nobody I've ever seen.
It's that water polo thing.
Because he does it all with one hand, or not all of it, but he does a lot of it with one hand. And it's, I don't know, it's wild. It's, man. He's also shooting 62%. 62%.
It's pretty good.
If they're the number one seed in the Western Conference, I'm sorry.
Which they're right now, they are number one.
Yeah,
I'm going to tell you, if Jokic doesn't get hurt, they're going to be the number one seed in the West because they've played basically the fewest amount of home games in the league. And as we know, in Mile High City, they always win a ton of regular season home games.
Well, who's coming to get them?
that's
Obviously,
my
they
point.
can play poor.
Memphis is right there, obviously. But they've done this with Jamal Murray, chipping off a year and a half of rust, and with
their
Porter
second best
missing
player has been Aaron Gordon. Their second best player has been Aaron Gordon.
Yep.
Now
we also have a Jokic related trivia question. Trivia. I wanted to get to the stat first.
Okay.
So, assuming that Nikola Jokic gets 30, 10, and 5 today against, or I should say, no, this is from the other day, actually, but it still counts. This is from the other day. Jokic had a streak of 30, 10, and 5 over 4 games. He was the first player to do that in decades.
Like you talking about consecutive 30, 10, and 5s?
Yep. First center to record consecutive 30, 10, and 5s over 4 games. Is
there a question here?
Yeah. Who was the last player to do it?
Wilt Chamberlain.
Lord.
Not Wilt Chamberlain.
30, 10.
Well, the hard part is the 5, right? That's the hard qualifier.
Kareem
is the answer.
I'm so good at this.
Honestly,
just layups for MacMahon at this point.
It's like Jokic throwing a one-handed no-look pass to a cutter coming down the baseline.
There's also a fun Christmas Day. There's also a fun Christmas Day related trivia, even though it's for a guy who isn't playing on Christmas. Paolo Banchero has 20-point games for the streaking Orlando Magic, who I believe have won 7 of 8 after a win over the Rockets. There's only one player who has had more 20-point games before Christmas than Paolo to start their career. Who is it?
Wilt.
LeBron James.
It is not LeBron James. It is not Wilt Chamberlain.
Yeah, back then they wouldn't have played that enough games before Christmas.
It's an interesting thought, Brian.
Melo.
Not Melo.
Luka.
Not Luka.
Is it somebody who's still active?
No, it is not.
No. Jordan.
That is correct.
Always a good answer. Like Wilt, always a good answer.
Paolo has played 26 games. Jordan played 29 before Christmas. He had 20 point plus games to start his career out of 29. Pretty good score, Michael Jordan.
That was a good trivia question.
There you go.
The Suns got sold in principle. Everything's got to be cleared to Matt Ishbia. Ishbia has wanted a pro sports team really bad. Him and his brother have wanted a pro sports team really bad over the last few years. They tried to buy the Broncos, and they had interest in several other NBA teams that weren't necessarily for sale before he did this deal for the Suns. The interesting thing will be, one, when does this transaction close? And the reason it's important is that if it doesn't close until after the trade deadline, the team might be a little bit frozen. And there's this, gray area. Does the new owner get to have, already Robert Sarver is disassociated, so it's already difficult. That's a short-term thing. The second thing is this guy, Ishbia, is a huge Michigan State fan booster. He, I believe,
national champion.
Yes, he was on the 2000 team. He was on the bench for the 2000 team. I believe his company, he's got a mortgage firm, gave all the basketball and at least all the basketball players all got NIL deals. They weren't for like,
did they buy that holiday sweater that Tom Izzo wore while getting teed up?
I'm sure they did. I'm sure it was also a part of the deal. So the question is, we just don't know what kind of owner he's going to be, but is he going to come in and say, get me Michigan State players?
Are you putting Draymond on the Phoenix Suns? Is that what you're doing?
I happen to know that he and Draymond have a good relationship, but I'm just saying, is he going to want Michigan State players? I don't know the answer. We don't have the information yet. So.
Well, I think in the short term, the most relevant question is in relation to when he gets to take over is, will this change what has been sort of the understood stance for the Suns that they have been able to take on money going into the trade deadline moving forward? Because if that is the case and they're able to, that could open up some more possibilities for them to try to upgrade this roster ahead of the deadline, which, certainly could be a interesting factor in what is a completely wide open Western Conference this season.
Hey, speaking of Christmas, did you see Monty Williams and DeAndre Ayton singing Christmas carols to each other on the bench the other night?
And Mikal Bridges singing some to each other on the court too.
Yeah, Bradley Beal enjoyed that performance.
He certainly did.
Everybody yells at DeAndre Ayton and have been doing so for years. For years. He's been getting yelled at for years. So it's very hard to know like whether it's a deal or not, because he's always getting yelled at.
Certainly is.
By the way, I'm a little bit worried. Booker missed the time with the hamstring, came back, scored 58, and then has a groin injury.
Would have been 61 if he'd have hit that buzzer beater that he jacked up, violating those unwritten rules that they were so fired up about.
Oh my God, that would have been amazing. It was against the Pelicans. Awesome. They finally beat the Pelicans, and he had 58, and he took like a 30-footer at the buzzer, and it looked kind of good. And
I respect taking that shot, especially given the circumstances. Like, come on, man, that's awesome.
It was great.
Yeah, I love that rivalry. The Chris Paul, Jose Alvarado.
You mean that player versus
player? Yeah, they won't say his name.
What was Chris Paul's thing with Alvarado last year after the series?
He mispronounced it.
Like he didn't know his name.
He pretended like he didn't know his name, even though like every time. He as if Chris Paul doesn't know or whatever.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Chris Paul, who often brags about how he watches more basketball than anybody in the world, didn't know the guy's name who he was playing against for 6 games.
Right. That is just gold. And the thing about it is, Alvarado obviously believes that he's getting under Chris Paul's skin. I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. So that's a fun rivalry. I'm, worried about Brandon Ingram, these toe injuries. That's why, they say Desmond Bane's coming back.
Yeah.
That's really good to hear, but toe injuries.
Well, they've obviously been careful with it because, he was originally going to be reevaluated in 2 to 3 weeks. And then after those 2 to 3 weeks, they said, 3 or 4 weeks progressing, but another 3 or 4 weeks.
So anyway, I don't know where Booker is going to be health wise on Sunday. He's been super hot for a lot of the year. So you don't want to have a setback, but he's got a hamstring and now a groin. So we'll see. Before we go, Atlanta Hawks, unusual. It happens occasionally, but unusual to see a mid-season change of the general manager, and that's what happened here. Travis Schlenk steps aside to go to an advisor role. I know that they kept saying, "Oh yeah, he's gonna," everybody's quotes were, "Oh, he's gonna still be advising." He's no longer running the show. It's Landry Fields'
Right.
Show now. And, the story that Landry, it's probably a little bit more to this, but it's a fun way to say it, is Landry Fields is in part running the Hawks because of chicken fingers. And this is his own story, by the way. This is not, he had this tight couple years ago. He was on this tight scouting schedule when he was working for the Spurs, and he hadn't had a chance to eat, like flew in from another game. And typically scouts don't eat during games. It's your work environment. It's not something that you normally do. You're supposed to be paying attention, not paying attention to your food, etc. But he was so hungry. He had gone to see Isaac Okoro play. I think Auburn was playing New Mexico or something, and that's where he was there to watch. And he was eating chicken fingers, and he sat next to Nick Ressler, who was Tony Ressler, the owner of the Atlanta Hawks' son, at the game. He also works in their front office. And Nick thought, he thought it was kind of cool that the scout was eating chicken tenders, and they talked about it, and they formed a relationship. The Hawks were looking to hire an ex-player. Within months, he was hired, was promoted to GM last year, and now he's running the show. That's a good story. Bontemps, the difficult story is the Hawks are not having a good year this year. There's been issues between Trae Young and Nate McMillan. John Collins has been on the trade block on and off for months. They have a logjam at some of their positions. They have traded away heavy draft assets to make DeJounte Murray fit in there, paid a huge price for him. It's not going well in Atlanta, and the fact that the general manager exited midway through the season is not a good sign.
No, it's a dysfunctional situation, clearly. And the fact that this has happened with Travis Schlenk is a perfect sign of a dysfunctional situation. I mean, I don't think Travis would say he's done a perfect job. I don't think we would say he's done a perfect job, but I think on the whole, it's hard to argue that he's done a pretty good job as the guy running that team over the past several years. And I want to read what Travis said in this press release, because I thought it was pretty illuminating to see how he described this. Quote, throughout the season, Tony being Tony Ressler, the owner of the team, Tony and I have had multiple honest conversations about some of the personal things I've been going through and how I've been feeling. And I appreciate the counsel he's provided me, as well as the opportunity he gave me 6 seasons ago to be a first-time general manager. As we enter a new year, the timing feels right for me to take a step back, reflect, and prioritize my family. I think that's a kind way of putting that this has been absolutely miserable. And, at the end of the day, it wasn't too long ago that the Hawks agreed to extend Travis Schlenk's contract for a long time. And I think that's why, you're seeing this as like a step back to an advisory role deal and not something else. But at the end of the day, like you said, Landry Fields has taken over as the guy who's in charge of basketball operations, which you never see happen midseason. And the fact this has happened in a year and a half after this team was in the conference finals. Mm-hmm. It's just a sign that everything in Atlanta is a mess, and it's hard to see that changing anytime in the near future.
It's been a chaotic year and a half, and Trae Young is trending towards IAS territory. It's always something. Tends to be a lot of stuff that's swirling around him, whether it's him and his teammates are beefing, or he's him and the coach are mad, or whatever. You talk about chicken tenders. The other part of the problem is Trae Young looks like barbecue chicken on the defensive end. That doesn't
He's
help
also
matters.
Having his worst shooting season. I think he just had a game where he shot the ball really well. But everything that Trae does is greased when those bombs are going in.
Oh, yeah.
And he's putting up those 30 and 10 nights. Like, I think he led the league in 30 and 10 games last year.
He's got 50-something of those in his career already.
And the Hawks are 26th in the league in 3-point shooting percentage and haven't been able to hit a shot pretty much all year as a team, let alone just Trae.
Yeah, the thing I love about Trae Young is obviously he can put up crazy numbers and he just has zero fear. I mean, you go back to Madison Square Garden and those, like, he thrives on that. But it's like, are you going to do the things on a consistent basis that impact winning? Like, it can't just be about, hitting big shots and putting up numbers. Like, are you going to show that you actually care about winning, or are you going to do a bunch of finger pointing?
Yeah, it definitely bears watching closely. But they're not playing on Christmas. Hope everybody enjoys Christmas Day. Thank you, MacMahon. Thank you, Bontemps. Thank you to our producers, Jackson and Bruce. Hope everybody enjoys the holidays. We'll have a little bit of a different schedule for next week. Won't have 3. I think we're going to have 2. But I hope you have a great time with your family and friends, and we will talk to you soon.
Adios, amigos.